All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to talk about Space Marine 2 again. Now, we haven't talked about Space Marine 2 in a little while now because obviously the game came out. It's a massive success. Had a little bit of issues here and there, but for the most part, people love the game, including myself. I streamed it. I played it all the way to completion. Had a fantastic campaign. I just wish it was a little bit longer because obviously the campaign was pretty damn short. And that's just reminiscent of me wanting more of the game that was quite enjoyable. Now, Space Marine 2 developers are apparently now having to respond to a little bit of backlash that they are getting from something called community events, which has to do with their multiplayer. People are not happy with the way that they're supposedly handling these community events and are basically saying that Space Marine 2 is trying to become a live service game, which a lot of people are not looking for when they are playing a game like Space Marine 2. Now, even though the developers are getting a ton of backlash for this, they have reassured everybody that this is not the case. And in this article, we're going to go over exactly how they explain that it's not the case. So let's get into this article, guys, from The Gamer. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. So it says Space Marine 2 developers react to cold community events response and says that it's not becoming a live service game. Space Marine 2's multiplayer has been a bit hot and cold since the game launched. My own personal perspective of Space Marine 2's multiplayer is that it was good, but it was also forgettable in a way, right? Like, it's fun if you partake in it, but it's not something you're going to think about playing every single day, at least not in my opinion anyway. When I bought Space Marine 2, I bought that game because I wanted to play the single player aspect of it, just like the first game, Space Marine 1. I didn't buy that for anything other than the single player aspect, and that's all it had at the time. With this having a multiplayer aspect, not really caring too much about it, it's a bonus for sure. It's extra, and it's not something you got to pay for or anything. But, you know, people play it for the single player aspect of it. But community events apparently have been a big source of annoyance for players who felt that it was too similar to live service games. Focus Entertainment has promised that isn't the case and noted that it's looking for a way to rework the event. So let's dive into what's actually being said here. Focus Entertainment has responded to the cold feedback that Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2's community events have received and promised that the game isn't becoming a full live service. Although plenty of Warhammer and hack and slash fans were excited about Space Marine 2's launch last year, no one could have predicted what a massive hit it would have been back in September. I think that's a lie. Straight up, I think that's a lie. There was plenty of indication that Space Marine 2 was going to be a massive game. No doubt about it. It's so massive that it blew away what Space Marine 1 was able to complete. You know, Space Marine 2 was a fantastic video game. And again, my only criticisms of it is, quite frankly, the game is too damn short. That is the biggest problem, especially for the price tag that they're asking for. The game is too short. Now, a lot of people could say, well, that's made up from the multiplayer aspect of things, but I don't really care about that. Like, I want to play the single player campaign, and I wish that it was a little bit longer, at least more, you know, maybe 6 to 10 hours longer, I think would have been fantastic, but whatever, it's fine. Despite its single player campaign being the main draw, players were surprised to find out just how involved its multiplayer elements were, and things started off very positively. I was too. I was surprised to see all the classes. I was surprised to see all the options. I think it's great. Like I said, the multiplayer is not bad. It's not great, or super great, I should say. It's kind of like, it's going to be fun, but it's also going to be forgettable. Like I said, I don't think you're going to be playing this religiously like people play Fortnite. I think that requires a different element of gameplay in order to keep people playing for that long. But it is fun, and it's something that you could partake in, pick up, play, and leave, you know, at a whim. It's fine. It's almost as if the case with multiplayer games in this generation, though, that didn't last very long. Focus Entertainment's nerfs, balance changes, and approach to community events have soured a lot of Space Marine 2 players, with some worrying that the game was pushing towards becoming a live service title. Now, here's the biggest problem. The community events in particular have been a sour spot for Space Marine 2 players, as despite being introduced as a new way to earn cosmetics, many thought that they were too close to what live service games do and could gatekeep cosmetics and unlocks. Focus Entertainment has responded to those worries in its most recent community update and promised that that is not the case. Towards the end of the February community update that was shared on its website, Focus pointed out that community events have received cold feedback from players who thought that it was generating FOMO. Focus says that it's not looking to transform Space Marine 2 into a full live service game, and that the items in these events will become available later for everyone. So here's what it basically is, okay? They're trying to give an option for the hardcore players to be able to have something to play and unlock first, and the more casual players will be able to unlock that stuff later down the line after the event is over. They're not just going to make them suddenly disappear like some other live service games do. They're just going to make them available for everybody after a certain amount of time, but the hardcore players are going to have access to it first. That's essentially what they're saying here. Then it says, according to Focus, the purpose of these community events is to provide a way for the most dedicated players to unlock items in advance, something that Focus admits has not provided a smooth experience so far. The team deeply apologized for the trouble the events have caused so far and promised that it's working towards a solution for all players to make unlocks less restrictive. So at this point, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to find a balance between the hardcore and the casual, which has always been an issue and trouble for developers to find a balance with. This has been happening since I don't even know how far back. We're talking like original EverQuest days, where there's always been this fight between casual and hardcore. What should be hardcore? What should be casual? Should you nerf? Should you not? There's been so many conversations like this happening for decades now. This is why when people try to make up this whole lie about how gaming is toxic all of a sudden and people are fighting all the time, this has been happening for decades. Where have you been? You know what I mean? Like, these conversations have been happening for the longest time. But in any case, it seems as if they're trying to find a way to reward the hardcore players without alienating the casual players. That seems to be their problem, and that's very difficult to do, admittingly. But it seems like the community events were supposed to be that answer, and it doesn't seem to be working for their fan base. On top of other things too, nerfs and whatnot, balance changes. But you're always going to get people that are going to complain about nerfs and balance changes. Look at Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 got so much backlash because of the fact that they kept nerfing everything. Anytime something was deemed fun or exciting or different, they nerfed it to the ground, and then it just became androgynous with everything else. So you don't want to necessarily have that same kind of experience, but at the end of the day, it is multiplayer. It is supposed to be somewhat competitive, even if it's not an esport. It's supposed to be somewhat fair and competitive, so they're going to do balance changes. That's only a matter of time. But ultimately, it does look like, and I'm happy to report that Focus Entertainment is at least listening to its community. They are at least listening to gamers that are actually playing their game, and they're making changes, and they're going to try to do different ways to do the community events to try to make them a little bit more friendly to people who are probably a little bit more casual, or at the very least necessarily not casual, but maybe they just don't want to be restricted by certain events that, you know, I guess they're timed and you have access to it early if you play more. You know, it's just all over the place right now. But again, this is what happens when you try to make everybody happy versus focusing on a core audience and just kind of build from there. So, but again, I'm excited to see this game and talk about this game again. And if you haven't played Space Marine 2, I highly implore that you check it out, especially if you're looking for a really fun, really good single player campaign that is unfortunately just a little bit too short. I wish it was longer, but if you're okay with that, and if the game is especially on sale, you should pick it up and check it out. I don't think you're going to be very disappointed. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy, and if you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.